Okay, hello everyone. Good morning for those who've got morning right now, and good afternoon for those who've got a different timing. So today we are going to talk about sustainable development goals. And since I don't want you to be indulged only with looking to the screen, I want you to be prepared. So hopefully you can get a piece of paper and a marker as well, and have it ready for one of the activities that we're going to have during this lecture. If you don't have a marker or anything, just have any piece of paper or a pen or a pencil. Is it all right? I'm watching and I'm looking to chat. I just see hello and morning there. So hopefully you are ready to have our interactive session as well. So just warned you that you have to prepare your mobile phones and you have to prepare your pieces of paper and markers. Because since the topic is quite important for their international economics development, we also need to develop it visually, and also need to train some extra skills. Okay, so let's go. What we are going to do today, since I'm going to watch my timing, not to keep you busy too much. So today we are going to talk about new paradigm of business sustainability. And you see, I'm putting that in brackets because it's the old new paradigm. And we also going to discuss business strategy and sustainable development goals, whether they fit or whether they don't. Has anyone asked business if they want to be sustainable, if it's profitable, and if they would like to be sustainable? And also the important thing, is it going to be measured or not? What are the country and industry profiles? So let's go back a little bit. Maybe someone can use the microphone and name me some of the biggest global challenges that we're experiencing today. Or you can use your chat. Anyone? Do we have any global challenges at all?
High pollution.
High pollution, that's true. What else?
Poverty, hunger.
Poverty and hunger. Is it the same in the whole world, Anastasia?
Mostly in some areas,
Uh-huh. What do you think
in
about
African areas.
Okay, what about Russia? Do we have hunger?
I don't know
Yes.
about statistics.
Okay. Okay, someone said yes. Well, okay, I see virus in chat, Trump trade war. Okay, Trump trade war, or we could name a few countries who are involved in trade wars. And what is their high income distribution? Right, or inequality in income distribution. Well, that's all correct. When I ask, do we have poverty in some countries? Actually, statistics would tell us that we don't in many countries, but I believe that we are moving towards fighting poverty, but we are still not perfectly good. We still have inequality, we still have trade wars, and a lot of things, and of course, virus is on top of that. So I'll just put some of their top hot topics here. Fiscal policies of different countries, what they do, that it also includes sanctions over some parts of the world, that also includes different policies that make some countries wealthier and make the prosperity grow. Then the global trade is under protectionism. We were talking during last 60 years about globalization, but do we have global trends? Probably don't. Be fooled. We don't really have global economics right now. And this is one of the prerequisites why we need sustainable business development to be online. Then raising living standards. Well, probably last 6, 7 months, our taste for life has changed. While I'm not in love with my home chair because I'm broadcasting from my flat and I'm not at university at the moment due to some restrictions. So I still love my chair, but I'm slightly tired of sitting in this chair for the past 6, 7 months. So my living standard probably has lowered a little bit, but generally we still would like to consume more, to have more, to go out more, even more than before. Technology development. With technology development, we are also limited because a lot of AI developments limit our choice for living. Climate change. I don't know, maybe some of you can share. um, Well, right now in Yekaterinburg, those who are in Yekaterinburg, we have around +5 sunny, which is quite warmer than usually in this time of year. Any of you do have any unusual weather in this season? See, we have French students. Well, Thomas, what about weather in your part of world? Is it normal? You can just type in chat. Just for me, it is good to know that you are still there. And thank you very much for those who've got their photos and cameras on. Okay, Alexander, I'm in Kazakhstan and it is snowing already. Okay, that's another effect. And probably, is it normal for that part of world where you are now? Probably not, because it's beginning of October. So we have unusual climate changes, and we had really hot summer here in Russia months earlier than it should be. So that's due to higher CO2 level and pollution, because around 30 years ago, scientists thought that pollution would bring us to global warming, but actually they are two faults. It could be global warming, or it could become colder all over the world. Okay, yeah, good to have you on board, Thomas. So it's still the same, used to be snowy, but it's warmer now. Okay, next, let's see what else. Well, you see the tree, that's eco-friendly tree. And that's a new trend because being eco-friendly means being in vogue and trendy. But unfortunately, not all the time we can say that being trendy actually means that you are driving a change, a positive change. And innovations. What is this other side of innovations? In fact, innovations might be disruptive, and they're killing the whole industries. They're killing, some income of certain types of people. And without proper education, some people are left behind. So what's sustainable agenda for today? I'm actually citing here Club of Rome. If you have heard of Club of Rome, please put plus in chat so I know. Club of Rome is a very important organization. If you have heard of that, that's fantastic. If you haven't heard of that, you're going to know now. It actually exists starting from 1972, and that's a club quite, there are top thinkers from all over the world, and they built these 100 members, and no governmental member could be part of Club of Rome, because they're thinking on how nature and development of the world are related. So they basically published a new call for new enlightenment. Although they were talking about this during last 50 years or 60 years already, but they still didn't know how to measure the capitalism today and how to choose between short-term and long-term considerations and how to balance public and private interests. Actually, they started their talk because their establishment of Club of Rome was an answer to development economics. And development economics is the prerequisite of sustainable development. Development economics is the direction which actually looks for economic development and prosperity. And with the development of those theories, we got such international institutions as International Bank and World Economic Forum. If you didn't know what was the beginning, it was the beginning of theory in development economics. So while you see here all the trends related to current situation, we want to consume more, we want to be more innovative, we live in really big cities. Urbanization is another trend. And literacy is going down, unfortunately. And how can you see this? Anyone knows how can you measure literacy? What are the methods? Any ideas? School literacy, for example, what is the quality of education? One of methods is to use international PISA ranking, which compares the level of education in high schools in different countries. It is being measured every 2 years. Then the next one is Human Development Index. And Human Development Index is postrequisite of development economics. It actually measures how wealthy and how educated are people around the world. And that's another prerequisite to see how different socially and economically are countries. The ranking is there and the data is available online for free. So if you're interested, just check it. Of course, I have this beautiful and ugly coronavirus, which affects directly consumption, innovation, population, and also it downsizes the quality of education in certain ways. And the call for circular economy, which actually fights with downsides of these trends, is severe right now. Circular economy was designed to downside their negative effects. So let's see. By the way, if you have any questions, just give me a sign or use your microphone. Otherwise, I don't know whether you are there or not. And of course,
I hear.
GDP. Okay, it's good to know.
I am listening, caller. I am listening.
Perfect. So GDP, do you think GDP still shows the way how we can measure their world progress?
Maybe it's not the best one right now.
Okay, what could be the options? What could be the options?
GDP per capita, maybe.
Yeah, GDP per capita to understand what's going on exactly. But there is also one indicator which shows it's GIN. It shows the actual progress over their development of country. And that's a rather new indicator suggested by World Economic Forum. And they actually measure what is the progress of countries towards their development in previous periods. Next, well, I've collected, the bad pictures. Some of you have seen this. You remember the bad cases of different bad corporate examples like Rio Tinto, BP, Nestle, water shortage, and Volkswagen case when they lied to the whole world and using their own standards. This is pretty new one. That's Kamchatka ecologic catastrophe and disease of all the creatures of sea world, because actually what happened, they didn't watch that some polluting ingredients were drawn to water, and this ecological catastrophe will be ahead during next 2-3 years at least. It's even worse than what happened in Mexican Gulf, and Mexican Gulf happened more than 5 years ago, so there were no lessons learned, and that's a very warning signal that we actually need to take concrete measures. Number 7 is a Russian soda company, Khushtal Mountain. Some of you who are here with us in Ural Federal University actually yeah, we're analyzing the situation with Khushtal Mountain and realized that sometimes when the biggest company, which actually spends a lot on corporate social responsibility, could be considered a responsible company, but only internally, because they are doing what they were told to do. But when it comes to extra profit and new possibility for extraction, they don't care. And that's a big problem. But the good thing that people reacted, and at the meantime, the process of demolition of this mountain has stopped. So, and those cases show you that CSR is not necessarily a part of sustainability, because CSR could be a prerequisite, and just for everybody to be on board, corporate social responsibility, that's what CSR stands for. So CSR is a part of sustainability when it's part of strategy. But are we aware that all companies would like to contribute to their common goods, or they would like to look only into their cash flow? That is why what I would say that CSR is doing good in your framework, and that's a very comfort zone to say that, okay, we are good, we are doing lots of projects, but when it comes to sustainability, it's becoming a good company, becoming a good citizen. That's where real change happens. And that's when sustainability is integrated into core business processes. And it's not just a standalone unit when you click that, okay, I'm good for today, and you're thinking how your action will change your region, your stakeholders, and your business for better within 3 to 5 years. Now, let's try to see who is in the room, and let's all go to Menti and use this code. You can try to use your mobile phone and just use this code if it works. And you will be in Mentimeter. Please answer the question, why sustainable development is important for you, for businesses and countries. So for example, you can say, it is only important for me, and you can type one word, I want to be sustainable, or maybe important for business or for countries, and think about those problems that we've discussed now. I give it a couple of minutes to get there. Okay. And once you're there, I'll help you to see what's going on. So you go to menti.com and use the code 395240 and 3. I'll copy this to chat because I have to switch to internet to show you in browser what's going on. So just in case. Okay. We are waiting for your input. I'll probably give it 3 more minutes so we see those who were on board with us. I like the way it actually shows future and opportunities in the middle slide. Stability, reputation, responsibility, progress, very good. No poverty, prospects, calmness, harmony, long-term development, profit guarantee, reputation, safety satisfying needs, maximization profit. Very good point. Very good point. Progressive confidence, essential, okay, new technologies, business on the world level. Okay, well, what we can see here is actually everything is very positive. And I like you being so positive. Those who are looking forward to have growth, prosperity, essential, fair world, that's fantastic. Of course, we all want to have better world, but those who wrote new technologies and profit maximization, you are right as well. You can't think about business in terms of economics development without profit maximization. A lot of people talking about CSR and sustainability still think that we are talking about charity and about being nice to people. Well, sometimes it's not about being nice to people. That's a way of transforming your business model. But when you need to transform your business model, it's not going to work if you are creating a blue ocean of your strategy. It's not going to work if it doesn't fit to your market. So then you need to work on your market, on your industry level, and introduce new indicators. So that is how we can progress our business model, and we can also build a better future. But then what is the better future for industry, for business, for country level, and for global economics as a whole? And here are some answers for that. Stability, bright future, of course, and also profit guarantee and necessity. Of course, sustainable development is necessity. Okay, you can enter more if you want. We will continue this presentation, then we might come back for this, and after the lecture, of course, all the participants will get this word count for sustainable development. You see what could be added in case you would like to add. Okay, so hopefully you can see my screen. Now I'll just open chat to be on board with you. Okay. Right. A little bit, well, I don't know, probably it's a little bit, it's kind of windy, this picture on the screen. But let's look at the history of sustainable development. I told you that it all began probably with Club of Rome, but actually it started with development economics in 40s of last century. I don't want to go through all the important milestones. I just want to show you the key aspects, in my opinion. Club of Rome, then a special Brundtland Commission report on sustainable development published in 1987. And then there was a specific conference of United Nations on environment and development. And that when development economics transformed to sustainable development economics. What happened? 3 years later, there was a non-governmental organization, which is the leading right now, World Business Council for Sustainable Development. The organization started working with businesses, organizations, and governments to see how we can measure and change the world. The important milestone is Millennium Development Goals. UN Millennium Development Goals were developed and published in 2000. And a lot of businesses were hoping that it actually going to help. But the problem was that they were really, really vague, those development goals. And nobody was sure if they're going to change the world. It was more about United Nations and the country level, and less about real business impact and real organizations. Originally, Millennium Development Goals were planned to help underdeveloped countries. And the key action to be taken was to fight poverty. So you can see that at that time, there was still issue number one, among others. And of course, in the same time, you could see that the Kyoto Protocol agreed in 1997. And another key thing is a conference in Rio, which took place 20 years after the first UN conference on environment and development, and the Paris Agreement on climate. Let's see what was offered. So for those of you who are not familiar with UN Millennium Development Goals, look at them. 8 goals, 189 countries agreed that they would achieve all these goals by 2015. Tell me, is it a successful project? Because it's already supposed to be done. What about developing countries? Do they all have good success in following this? Agree, it's not realistic at all. But why? What was the reason, you think?
I think maybe because without businesses, we can't achieve these goals, because only business can scale all the resources which we have, and these resources can help us to achieve these goals.
Well, of course, governments have got resources and they allocate a lot of money because we are all taxpayers, and they use these taxes for their budget. But if you only have a really small part of stakeholders who are engaged, and if you don't explain what exactly you would like to achieve, it's probably not going to work. Because promote gender equality and empower women. Well, that's a fantastic goal. I'm pretty much looking forward when all the women will be empowered and have equality. But it doesn't say how and to which extent. So it's not scalable, it's not measured. Reduce child mortality. How you can reduce it? And what are the measures and who is in charge of this? That was a weak point in developing UN Millennium Development Goals. Let's have a look briefly, because I don't want to go in details of this, but Paris Agreement, that's very important because it is adopted by 195 countries, but not everyone ratified that. By the way, Russia ratified it only last year in 2019. And this new mechanism is much better developed because it resulted with some carbon tax in Europe. It also resulted with financial mechanism on how to achieve it. But of course, those countries who produce the biggest volume of CO2, they're not happy to ratify it. Guess what are these countries? What about China? What about US? What about India? Well, Russia struggled to ratify it as well because we are quite important producers of CO2 as well. So of course, you can see that it is, a good fundamental thing to support Millennium Goals, but it didn't really work at that scope. It only starts working when some countries incremented that to have in their legal framework. Now, what I want to show, hopefully you can see the whole screen. That's what countries started to develop when they agreed that Millennium Goals are not working. They agreed to start develop a new framework and new methodology to assess sustainable development. And they invited a lot of regulators from intergovernmental organizations and from business organization, and also from non-governmental, governmental, non-commercial, and commercial, not-for-profit and for-profit organizations. And they tried to develop with working groups in many, many countries, indicators and targets, what to achieve. And they included all the issues, painful issues to get the result. So what happened in transition towards sustainable development when they switched? I don't know why Kamchatka crab is here in my presentation, but probably it's a good sign why we have it here. So the transition is on the slide. So in Millennium Development Goals, they had only 8 goals and they had 20 targets, while SDGs were developed not only for underdeveloped countries, but for global countries, because advanced economy, so-called advanced economy countries realized that they are not all good as well. So they've developed framework both for domestic and international targets, 17 goals, 169 targets, and 230 indicators. All the goals are very measurable. And the level went from national to leave no one behind. So you can compare how good, well, what is your progress with the time, and what are you going to do in the next 5 years, 2 years. So right now we are looking forward to achieve these 17 goals by 2030. And the important part is about financial background, because when we were only talking and considering Millennium Development Goals, it was largely bilateral financing. So it was not a very financially effective model. Right now, there are a lot of local resources and a lot of business models and impact investment models in place. And that's quite interesting. That is why under Sustainable Development Goals, you can see their development of organizations of different types, not only business, not only governmental, but also universities are included. So to sum up this part of our talk, I want to give you some baseline for business, industry, country, and world. So when we talk at the level of world, we are moving from development economics to sustainable, measurable development, to a balance between economic, environmental, and sustainable indication of prosperity. At the level of country, it's about raising prosperity of people and institutional effectiveness to ensure sustainable growth. When we talk about industry, and we will look into examples of industries today, that's to make sure that the whole market is focused on the same prosperity formation, that they are focused about global value chains, and they make sure that multiple stakeholders will develop to conserve and develop human, financial, economic, social resources in the interests of future. That is why I really like that the world future was in the center of our world cloud. Business. At the level of business, because a lot of people ask why business should be interested. Isn't it some extra that we have to pay to those who are not doing something effectively? And a lot of business people are saying, because when we were doing research and asking whether you contribute to sustainable development goals at all, a lot of businesses said, well, no, because I'm from business, I'm not from government, I don't need it. But then when you have a deep interview and you analyze what they're actually doing, they don't know how it is called, but they obviously contribute to communities, they contribute to quality of their goods, they develop their value chain, and they also take care about the market where they exist, because they want their company flourish and they want their people flourish within this company and within their clients' database. So that's adopting business strategies and activities that satisfy the needs of enterprise and its multiple stakeholders, while protecting, sustaining, and enhancing human and natural resources that will be needed in the future. Well, normally I ask how many of you, because probably all of you have heard about sustainable development. So how many of you can name all 17 sustainable goals?
I can try to do it.
Oh, wow. You're the first person who is that brave to say. Sorry for my voice. Okay, Anastasia. Anyone else? Well, now even I'm ashamed. So no. Okay, then I ask a more complicated question. Anastasia, maybe you can define them by colors as well.
Just part of them, I think.
Okay, what are your favorites?
All of them.
That's interesting, because you have to be concrete. All of them, yes, but then you still have to choose something to work with, because what I'm showing you here, it's called a wedding cake model for SDGs. And I pretty much like it because it's built on planet, people, prosperity, peace, and partnership. And you see the layers and colors are built in a way that you can clearly understand which SDGs contribute to which vectors. Stockholm Research Center invented this simple but brilliant, wedding cake. So, planet, clean water and sanitation, responsible consumption, climate action, life below water. People, no poverty, zero hunger, good health, well-being, quality education, gender equality. Prosperity, clean energy, decent work and economic growth, industry, innovation, infrastructure, reduced inequalities, sustainable cities and communities, and overall peace and partnership between all of the goals. Which ones you think are more in request by business?
Partnership.
Partnership, okay. So Olga, how business define their measured targets as partnership?
I'm sorry, Zhana Sergeyevna, can you repeat question?
So how they define partnership for them, for businesses?
It's like synergy between businesses, like in usual meaning partnership, that they're working with each other to
Okay, well,
Uh,
I would like to have business as good as you think of them, but well, no, they actually need to define what exactly they will get and how exactly they will measure it, because they are business. And what happened when they were thinking about implementation and reaching the goals, that what happened when sustainable development goal compass measure it, what happened with SDGs in 2019. Unfortunately, you can see that it didn't really work fantastically, but we still have 10 more years to achieve them. Well, the world is not on track to end poverty by 2030. More than a third of employed workers in sub-Saharan Africa live on less than $2 a day. And you see the statistics here in these infographics. So what happens that probably something goes wrong because the world is transforming, we adapt, we talk about this. A lot of companies produce glamorous sustainable development goals reports, and still a lot of companies have a very nice transition from financial reporting to integrated reporting. So what is missing? It is interesting to see what is missing, but also I don't want to give you a very black colored picture because actually there are lots of good things as well that we have to look at. When such a result was measured in 2019 and 2018, even earlier, companies who took a leadership, and they are the biggest companies, they decided to switch to a better image of SDG and better understanding and methodology, how to measure economics and social projects toward better sustainable future. So they defined these 6 transformation directions: people, big data, technology, value, collaboration, and resilience. So they've built 5 pathways towards sustainable future. They are developing what they're going to do, and they're measuring companies, and a lot of companies are actually, a lot of researchers are asking companies which SDGs they choose and what is the most effective way to concentrate on certain SDGs which actually are good fit to institutional positioning of country and also business development. And at this point, while we still have our lecture, I would like you to choose for you 1 or 2 SDGs which are the most effective in your understanding, which actually correlate to your understanding of sustainable development the most, and suggest 1 target that could be achieved by 2030. And by the end of the lecture, we will all have those pictures on your screens, which could be interesting to see. So it would be interesting to see which SDG is the most popular within students with and participants with different backgrounds. So I just want to go through some of these pathways and to see your statistics, how companies change and where they stand. When you analyze their SDG progress towards innovation score, what you see here, that of course advanced countries are on top, they are progressing SDGs quite fast, and their innovation score is the highest. Maybe some of you might be surprised by China, but actually China is doing pretty well, at least in the way they report the SDG progress. But in terms of SDG 11, which is sustainable city, they're progressing really, really well. And of course, pandemic crisis put on hold some of the developments, but they're doing pretty well with all crises, increasing monetary crisis. Maybe their case sensitive here is human development, but it's a very sensitive case to discuss, I guess. Then you could see here that countries which are less developed economically, of course, the innovations level is lower there, and that is one of the reasons they progress slower in SDG progress. So that's the outlook for now. Some researchers think that some of these developing countries might be leaders by 2030, according to the measures they are taking now. For example, these companies here, some of them are emerging markets. Okay. Let's go to the next pathway. For business, when I asked you why company would like to use SDGs, so how it actually reflects in the way how company integrates SDGs in their operations. Well, there are two strategies. First, increasing positive impact, and second, minimizing negative impact. Even if we take, Bashkirian soda company or world-known cases like Volkswagen, for them it's important to minimize negative impact and also think of a strategy how to increase positive impact. It's very interesting fundamental thing for research. So this is how they work and create global value chain. So they work with raw materials, and here they decide that their priority is to reduce its negative impact on SDG 15 by reducing soil degradation, for example. Then with suppliers, they identify priority to reduce negative impact on SDG 3, good health, by ensuring safe working environments and its operations. By the way, SDG 3 became a leader SDG during coronavirus lockdown, because of course, for many companies, it was important, of course, to be on board still to produce um, uh, to be alive, actually, but also big companies invested a lot in care for their employees, and they made sure that they're healthy and their well-being is not changing due to coronavirus. Then, for example, company operations, decent work and economic growth. It sounds obvious, but well, company should identify priority that in their operations, they provide living wage to all employees. There are famous cases with Apple, with Nike, when they organized in their global value chain glamorous brochures, but they also had some sweatshops and they didn't care about third countries. That's what is changing really slowly, because once we talk about decent work and economic growth in developed countries, it's a totally different story from developing countries and third level countries. And of course, product use, for example, beverages industries, which use a lot of water. There are lots of scandals with those companies which actually can reduce negative impact in a supply chain by reducing wastewater and also using water in some parts of global economy. And product end life. Interestingly, not many companies care about SDG 12. And responsible consumption with the trend of overconsumption is a very serious problem. But this is just an example how a company can start creating value within the global value chain. Because you see in this table that if the company is a part of ecosystem and the only company which cares about achieving SDGs, it probably won't work. That is why SDG is a call for global economy change. The next, hopefully some of you know that today, and I'm glad that we have this lecture today, it's the second Thursday of October, which is celebrated as the World Eco-Label Day. Did you know? So,
No.
okay, so here we go. And they started celebrating the World Eco-Label Day 2 years ago. The date specified that's the second Thursday of each October. And they started on 25th, I guess, of October of 2018. So it's international organization on eco labels. It's presented in 50 countries, and they've created a mobile app. You can actually Google for it. It's both for Apple and for Android and for all types of phones. You can download, choose eco labels. And with this app, you can check in any mall or any shop whether this product is really eco-certified. And you can read how they certified, because maybe you have you have noticed when you are in the mall, you will see a lot of green products. Everything is green now. So you take soap, it's eco-friendly. You take, toothpaste, it's painted green. If you look at labels, even McDonald's actually painted instead of red. In some cases, they have the green brand. Does it mean that all of them all of a sudden went green? Unfortunately not. And this is one of the part of soft instruments for environmental policy. When market-based instruments are developed, and you can check with this app whether it's really official eco-labeling or it's part of greenwashing and marketing. And here on the slide, you see some of the regulation instruments, how to build a better system of environmental policy. Of course, it's quite well understood performance-based standards and technology-based standards, but soft instruments might work better in some cases. So let me take this opportunity to congratulate you with the World Eco-Label Day. And maybe you can download this app, and next time you're in the shop, you check whether it's a truly certified green product or not. And let me know if you found something interesting using this app. Let's go further. The next path is forced industrial revolution. So introduction of new technologies, AI, and Internet of Things. This is part of research of PricewaterhouseCoopers, and they've got interesting data which I wanted to share with you. So you see there are SDGs which are most applicable to fourth industrial revolution. And that's also very interesting research to be done. And that is why it's a hot topic right now in many journals. Well, we were doing systematic literature review with my colleagues on Internet of Things and corporate business models, how they apply Internet of Things in their business development. And you see the results that in platform economics, 100% of SDG progression is supported initially. So their change from e-business towards platform economic is actually based on sustainable development goals progression. AI, artificial intelligence, is central to over 50% of applications mapped. And they made this research in 35 countries, by the way. Then blockchain plays a role in 25% of their mapped applications, Internet of Things 33%, and advanced materials involved in over 10% of mapped applications. And you see that technology could have high impact across 10 of the 70 SDGs. And you can see that it's not only general understanding, but 70% of 169 SDG targets can be directly supported by technology innovation. So that is why when we were looking at dependence of SDG progression and innovation development within country, it's very important to progress. And that is why the progression rate is slightly higher in developed countries comparing to developing. Now, since I'm sitting here in Russia and a lot of you are sitting in Russia as well, probably you would like to know how Russia looks in SDG dashboard. If you want, I can send you afterward the link that's SDG index, which has the data for all the countries in the world, and it's measured towards progression of 169 targets. And that's such a result could be projected for all the countries, and you can actually click on each of the SDGs and see the result of each target and all the calculations behind. So you see what we can see for Russia. Well, generally speaking, we all right. Well, actually in our national report, and jumping a little bit in one of my next slides, I would like to share fantastic news that in summer 2020, the first voluntary report produced by Ministry of Economic Development of Russia has been published. So it was a joint work of business, of government in Russia, and it is published on the website of ministry in Russian and in English. They measured all the SDGs in Russia and provided statistics for that, which for researchers is a good resource to make new fantastic discoveries, but also it's interesting to see where we're standing. So you see, it's all good in Russia according to that statistics with poverty, which is, I think, questionable, but in terms that most people live more than $5 a day, internationally, it is, of course, true. Quality education, it's growing trend, and one of the indicators is international ranking of schools and quality of graduates. And by the way, you might know that according to Forbes ranking, graduates from Ural Federal University are ranked number 4 in Russia, and that's the only university outside Moscow and St. Petersburg. Then decent work and economic growth. It's a nice trend, at least, and improving situation with health, gender equality, clean water, affordable and clean energy, industry innovation and infrastructure. But, well, at least we don't have decreasing trends. We have some stagnating, zero hunger, life below water, life on land, and partnerships for the goals, which actually means that there is no partnership because business yet has not discovered their positive outcomes for this goal. But I can also say that there is another ranking for universities. It is published by Times Higher Education Ranking, and they measure universities as organizations, whether they are producing projects towards SDG. And for universities, partnerships for the goals is more important. It's quite fresh ranking, and the impact of university is quite interesting to measure. It also shows that different universities are better in different SDGs. in different part of the world. And there are only 47 Russian universities on this ranking. And unfortunately, there is no one trend what they do. Of course, all of them have SDG number 4, and all of them are trying to increase employability of graduates, which means that they have a lot of projects with industry and infrastructure. Okay, let's move further. While I was talking, I've already outlined some of their shared imperatives between business and SDGs. So try to answer the question why business would transform their business model. Why would they like to progress and analyze their activity within SDG framework? I just want to outline some of their key words in this slide. First of all, it is the business core role in generating growth, productivity, and jobs. That's the prerequisite of their development. Then also leveraging impact investment. It's not enough just to work on return on investment, but also to produce impact investment, which will have a positive impact on development of market where they operate and beyond. Because if prosperity is growing in the market, that also means financial return and social return for business and region. And of course, when they're developing their ecosystem and they're bringing in only good practices in their code of behavior, it helps to regulate this market, and it helps to increase profitability and also social inclusion and social effects. When business is planning how to start, because as I said before, a lot of small and medium-sized business don't understand how they can contribute. It is very important to define priority. That is why I was a little bit hesitative when you mentioned that you would like, you actually like all 17 SDGs. Because if you work in your company for all 17 SDGs and you haven't outlined the priority for your company, that would mean that you're just spending money and probably there won't be any good return. So you are not concentrating your resources on the most suitable for your strategy SDG. It's not important. It's not necessary to cover all the SDGs. Maybe your company will choose 2 or 3, but you will have a very good effect for your business, for communities, and for region where you are located. A question here. This is another part of another year PricewaterhouseCoopers research. Look at it. They tried to see what's important for business and what's important for citizen. Do you see any joint fields? It is actually only one: climate action. That's a silver line, right? So that means that while business thinks that they're doing good for social, environmental, and economic results, they all work here. But for people, it is more important to work in here. And of course, that's a slight problem in here. That means that business should talk to their stakeholders more often. Interesting, right? By the way, I hope that you're drawing your SDGs. Now, some statistics, which SDGs were picked by different industries. And you can see that in average, different industries pick 5 SDGs to follow. For example, that's chemicals, communication, energy, engineering, construction, financial services, healthcare, manufacturing, professional services, retail, and technology. So what's happening that most of them, of course, have climate action, but the SDGs are placed here as they were ranked by the companies. And you can see sometimes it's actually amazing that not everyone put decent work and economic growth as a top result for development of the industry, you see. And also responsible consumption is not the top goal. As I've mentioned before, number 12, responsible consumption and production, is underestimated, or companies don't see how they could progress towards responsible consumption. Well, I once mentioned that one of the dirtiest industries overall in terms of pollution is actually fashion industry, because they are dyeing so many materials. And it's quite interesting how they are trying, but they actually didn't want to participate. PricewaterhouseCoopers has started this research in 2015. They're finalizing 2020 research about SDGs, and I look forward to see what's the outlook for 2020, because obviously 2020 is the whole new world. That's the new world model. But I've got some of their examples to see what's happening in 2020. Here, it's statistics about situation in Russia. As I said, we have the first voluntary SDG report, and it's quite promising. Unfortunately, the lowest involvement is goal 2, zero hunger, and goal 10, reduce inequality. Most probably because companies don't know how to integrate that into their strategy. But of course, the top goals are goal 9 and 12. So that's interesting. We are going against the trend in Russia. So a lot of companies in Russia take goal 12, responsible consumption and production, as the priority goal. That's quite interesting. And what is important, that 43% of business representatives noted their awareness of the SDG. So they know what it is. Maybe it's not a big number in terms of country, but considering that we are quite big country, it's quite all right. But a better indicator is here that almost 70% set specific indicators. They are not just talking about achieving SDGs, but they choose targets and indicators inside each of the SDG. And the same could be noted about universities. All the universities in Russia, which are on the track to sustainable development, and they are trying to make education better and innovation and industrial connection more effective, as well as quality of education to be raised to international standard and bring up our national good qualities. They set exactly what they want to achieve and what are the key performance indicators. That's important. And also, due to it's still depending on the top management, the company will behave looking at the behavior of top management. And top management is highly involved in following SDG agenda, which is good news as well. Well, I have this data for you to see which companies in Russia were the most active in pandemic support. This is not the final list, of course, that's in billion rubles. So Norilsk Nickel, but we also know that's, that's a trade-off, because Norilsk Nickel caused ecological catastrophe lately, but they also invested 10 billion rubles to support local communities, to support municipalities, and also to support lots of schools with, masks and medicine, and also extra beds for extra anti-COVID hospitals. Unilever, these cases, and I will have a model for Unilever. They, for example, in Moscow, they provided all the schools with cleaning material, domestos, and they spent overall in Russia more than 8 billion rubles for support of their stakeholders. Of course, Sberbank is here, Timchenko Fund. If you don't know, it's a fund supported by largest metallurgical companies of Russia. USM is also a metallurgical company in Russia, and an LMK that's also metallurgical company. Interestingly, in this list, we see agro company, which is one of the biggest, and one from outside of Russia might think that, in fact, this industry is under sanctions and they would not invest a lot. But they've invested quite a lot of money to help their external stakeholders during this pandemic lockdown. And of course, you know, Yandex, which is e-company, IT company, Procter & Gamble in Russia, and Potanin Fund is also metallurgical company basement related to. So you see that Russian companies actually support a lot of stakeholders, even not directly outlined in their impact reports during pandemic lockdown. Then their governmental initiative, there are lots, but I wanted to share with you that right now only 7% of waste is recycled in Russia, but their target point of Russian government is to downsize it and to recycle 36% by 2024. They're going to spend 30 billion rubles on that. That's very important, and that comes as one of the effects of Paris Agreement, actually. That is why it was mentioned in the very beginning of our lecture. If you have any questions, I hope you're still there. Another, well, those of you who actually were using train services in Russia, Russian railway, you will recognize our so-called Lastechka. And you might be surprised, but that's the first Russian company which issued the company's first green bond in 2020. Another quite positive news piece is that Moscow State Exchange started calculated indices, green indices from August 2020. And this is one of the companies which issued their green bond. So you can see on the slide what they're doing to become greener. And actually, well, they have quite good results when they which they presented recently. See, it's Russian railway. For those who are not familiar, they don't have the best image, but they are working really hard to rebuild new sustainable image. And it's not only about marketing and greenwashing. They're investing a lot. They work with communities. They have a lot of innovation labs across country, and they have very specific targets for reduction of emissions, plastic use, and water use. So that might surprise you, but I'm watching closely how this company is developing. They also invest in technological and internet innovations a lot. And what they do, they recycle oiled railway sleepers to biomass and community heating system. So their closed loop system is used with Russian railways. How many of you traveled this summer with trains? Have you traveled? Anyone with Russian railways? Probably no one. But I've heard from people that they are quite progressive. But of course, it depends where in which part of Russia you are traveling. But let's hope that they have good effects in 2-3 years. Okay, international case here. Okay, several times. Alexandra, did you like it? Did you have positive experience? And Razil Mir, did you have positive experience? Have you noticed anything what is claimed? You're on mute. Unfortunately, we can't hear you, Alexandra. We can see you talking, but there is no sound. Or maybe you can write. Olga, each time to university. Okay, that's interesting. So you must be in love with Russian railways. Okay, while we are interested to know, and Katya as well. Okay, so hopefully hopefully you see the changes that Russian railways, positive but too long. Yeah, and unfortunately it's not TGV in France so far, but it depends on the distance and it depends on the part of Russia where you're traveling. Okay, so there, just for you to see how international okay, Razel, positive Moscow. No, wow, you've probably traveled more than all the Russians who are here in virtual classroom. Fantastic journey. Well, I'm even jealous now. Okay, so that's we have to switch from journeys, and we all would like to travel more, of course, to a case of Unilever. That's a very good example how they circle what exactly they want to include in their value chain. You see, in their vision, they already link their values and SDGs. And that's very important. So we understand that what they're doing is directed to achieve sustainable development. And all these SDGs are linked directly to their business. So they reduce environmental impact. That is why in their production facilities, they have in place recycling machineries. They also enhance livelihoods for millions. They introduce a lot of technologies for people. That is why they worked with schools during pandemic, and they normally have a lot of education projects. And this is actually the first company which made one of the production series totally made of recyclable materials. And it's a so-called clean line, чистая линия. It is made totally of recyclable materials. And they spent quite a lot of investment to figure out what would be the best technology. And of course, it was quite expensive for company. So you see what exactly they are doing in this model. And this is one of the companies which actually pays attention to stakeholders and partners. Vice President of Unilever in Russia, Irina Bakhtina, she's actually a good friend of us in Ural Federal University. And she is one of the most active partners of developing SDGs in Russia totally. Well, maybe we will have a guest lecture from her in this or next semester. Okay, I wanted to share some of indicators and tools for SDGs. And you can see that there are some powerful digital solutions for several goals. And you could see how these digital solutions can indicate and measure the results. For example, in water management, a good outline would be up to 15% water consumption reduction by year 2030. Or for smart agriculture, 20% food waste savings in 2030 from smart agriculture. And all digital solutions, around 20% of global CO2 emissions can be saved in 2030. It is very simple to start. It is not simple to use the right indicator to calculate how. You could start from a very simple indicator and just split it to financial, economic sustainability, social sustainability indicators, and environmental sustainability indicators. And remember, in the very beginning of the lecture, we had that CSR is a very comfort zone when you do something good and nice inside your company and a little bit outside. But sustainability is when you actually try to make change and you know how to measure it and how to move it forward, and also how to drive your surrounding market or your sector or your industry or your neighbors to make a change and how to measure it. Because unless you show people how you measure toward better situation, it is not working. The same with business. When they see that their investment become impact investment and the loyalty of their customers is growing, not only because it's pretty much in vogue, but because people share. And when your customers understand that even stopping using plastic cups will be a part in the global value chain of recycling, and that makes your friends or colleagues paying less taxes on pollution or on plastic or carbon tax, that loop will be closed. And in that way, there are different countries in different parts of the world which are changing towards this understanding. And that is why we have different level of progression towards SDG. It is easier with big companies, but it is more complicated with small and medium enterprises. You could see some examples which are picked by small and medium enterprises. We had a research project with some of Eastern European and Western European colleagues, and we were comparing how small and medium-sized companies in beverages industries were actually developing their strategies towards SDG. And there is a very interesting observations then while in Western Europe, small and medium-sized companies are more devoted to ecological and packaging issues than in Eastern Europe countries. They're more concerned about economic growth and economic awareness of clients in their smaller circles. Of course, it's access to basic infrastructure and imperfect information and access to finance. That are the biggest challenges for small and medium businesses. And we come to lecture summary. I have this rainbow for you to show the differences that we were looking at. Different places, different definitions, lots of issues, lots of different departments at business level, at government levels, different sectors. But the most important is to have a united vision and to achieve a global vision of sustainable development goals. Right now, we see how the world is changing with sustainable development goals. That's an interactive map which can be assessed at sdgindex.org. And you can see that only one country here is very close to the goal 2030. And you see that we are more or less all right using aggregative index. There are some countries which are better, some countries which have a way to go, but we still have 10 more years to achieve a better development of our planet. And that's how sustainable development goals transform our planet, our economics, business, and social development. Before I actually want to show you one more slide, I would like you to show your pictures. Hopefully you are ready. If you are ready, please show your pictures, which SDG you prefer. If you decided that you are too shy to draw something, you can write it to chat, which is SDG, which is the most important for you. So if you're not ready with the pictures, at least I see in video, or at least 2 persons are doing something. Zarnigor, do you have your picture ready? Okay, well, because I was talking, I actually didn't have time to write, but this is mine. Probably you can't hear it well, but that's SDG 4 and SDG 11. So as I'm from university, then SDG 4 is essential for me to work on, and there are pretty interesting targets. And 11, since we are in economics, are important as well. Quality education. Thank you, Ilya. That's climate action, life below water partnership for goal. Very nice, thank you. Anyone else? Don't be shy. If you didn't have them. 13, and 13 is what? You puzzled everyone now?
Climate action.
Climate action. Thank you very much. Nice to see you. Anyone else? Valentin, good health, well-being, goal 15, life on land. Economic growth. Thank you there, Nigor. Christina. Wow, that's a masterpiece. That's what I call a masterpiece. Anastasia, no poverty, zero hunger. That is G1, no poverty. And 1613, no poverty. What is 13, Valeria? Responsible consumption and production, number 12. Climate action. Okay, that's interesting choice. That's interesting choice. And before we come to, unfortunately, the end and possible questions, I would like to finish with this slide so that you have to find your sustainable advantage, your targets and goals for the better achievement for your personal household, for company that you're going to work, for university where you study, and also for your neighbors, for your colleagues, and so on. And that together we can make the world impactfully better. Dear colleagues, thank you very much. If you have any questions, you can always ask me now, or dear students as well, or you can always ask me via email, which is listed here. Yeah. Do we have any comments, questions?
I have a question. I didn't hear about which index you said we can measure welfare of countries, like GAN or how?
GIN.
GRN.
You can see there it here. You can, I think it's org. that's their organization which gives you the data on impact investment. Also, corporate nights, that's another form. And if you want on request, I can send you the list of databases where you can actually get the data for your research if you're interested in SDG progression.
Okay, it would be nice.
Sure, just write me email. Okay.
Professor, I have a question. It is how you think? Could you tell me, please, this situation with with Alexei, this person who in Germany now, with his health, situation, how will the impact to SDG in future?
That's a very tricky question about Navalny situation. Thank you, Zarnigor.
Yes.
To tell you the truth, I don't have the full information as no one else. We only can have versions of what has happened. And as a researcher, I normally look for detailed information. And of course, in terms of the health of person, a specific person, if we are talking about poisoning elements, of course, the use of those elements should be neglected in all the world. And that is why we have the chemical organization for that. The other issue, how much of political games are involved here. And I think this is also beyond sustainable development goals, but that fits in goal number 17. So in terms of economic sanctions, it might be a very unfavorable situation for Russia. And it might cut the speed of our progression towards SDG. But since it's not only about SDG 17, we are doing quite well in many SDGs, like good quality education, like fighting poverty, providing good economic growth and decent jobs. And I think that's a positive movement, which of course doesn't stop us from understanding what has happened and how to exclude such possibility of such situation in the future.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, I have a question in a private chat. I believe it's a question for everyone. If you want me to, yeah. So there was a question that in Russia some are extreme poor and some extreme rich, and income inequality exists. How we well, exactly. Thank you very much for this question. The thing is, the SDGs were developed for better measurement, and that is why they have targets. Their statistics is never giving you only truth, because it's average and that's mean. But we are not only looking at the income inequality, but we also look at what it is directed at and what is the combination of SDGs. And that is why some of their SDGs are mixed up. And when you are looking at poverty and zero hunger, you see that here is the problem. And that shows that it's not solved. That exactly uncovers why having green arrow or no poverty is neglected by zero hunger. And the combination of these two gives you a better picture. Of course, and that is why stagnating, if you remember the slide that I was showing, the stagnating was the SDG for inequality. That shows exactly inequality in income, in promotion possibilities, and also in gender equality. Because well, for example, in many companies, they don't want to talk about gender and equality because they say it does not exist in Russia. Everyone is equal. But we are well aware this is not true. And it is actually explained in small details. I hope that I could answer this question, but it's a very interesting one. Okay, if you have any questions on the lecture, or if you're not ready to ask now, you're free to send me email. And of course, for my students who follow me on my lectures, we will have a short test following the lecture, indeed. And we will follow up in our class on Monday. So hopefully you learned something new today, and hopefully you are in my SDG religion now. Have a good afternoon. And I see some of you soon, and some of you maybe I look forward to your email.